All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started as close to time as possible. Chris Goglin. I'm with Clean Energy New Hampshire. We're one of the primary organizers of New Hampshire Energy Week. And we are thrilled to kick off this first day of Energy Week. For those that celebrate, also happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And Iran, if you could just go to the next slide. I'm going to just take a little bit of time. And before we begin today's program, the vast amount is going to be led by Iran E, my colleague at NEEP, who has been putting this all together. Deeply grateful for NEEP's work, New Hampshire DES's work, as well as the Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, more commonly known as VEIC, for putting this together. This has been something that I personally have been very excited to see unfold since the IIJA and the IRA were first passed and signed into law. But first, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made New Hampshire Energy Week possible. A huge thank you to our lead sponsor, New Hampshire Saves. They administer the New Hampshire Energy Efficiency Program, whose work saves family businesses money every single day. New Hampshire Saves will be before the New Hampshire PUC with their 2027-2029 plan. So for those of you that are interested, reach out to Clean Energy New Hampshire or just to learn how you can participate in that. We also want to express gratitude to Gigawatt sponsors, or to our Gigawatt sponsors, Walden Renewables and CPCNH, Community Power Coalition New Hampshire. They've put in a significant amount of support into this and are dedicated to making sure that our energy future is real. So just the opening slide, Iran, and then I'll just have a few comments and then just turn it over to you. Next slide. Okay, thank you. So this is something that I am particularly excited about. And I'll be honest, as I've been watching what's been happening nationally and internationally with the growing energy crisis, this seems to be a very well-timed, well-positioned initiative that is funded through the collective works of several states. And we've been waiting for this for quite some time, and I am eager to see how NEEP, VEIC, and their other partners unfold this heat pump accelerator program, because we're at a time where we may see heating fuel prices, propane, oil, and gas rise in a way that we historically are not familiar with. And so it's quite timely that we have this program coming into place that can, as energy prices rise, demonstrate that we have solutions to this that can make us more independent as a region. And so I'm going to stop there and just turn it over on. I want to give you as much time to give your presentation as possible. But we're super excited that to have NEEP, VEIC, and New Hampshire DES giving this presentation. The last thing I would note, though, is I will be watching the Q&A and then using those questions to provide curated questions directly to the team at the end after they've given their remarks. I've left open the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that, but the chat is principally for this group to leave their own thoughts, their own questions, and have their own side conversation. But we'll be primarily drawing from, or almost exclusively drawing from, the questions, the Q&A box, to ask questions of the team that's here. But we will also be recording this webinar and looking at the chat after, so we can understand how we can continue to serve the community. Thank you. Over to Iran.
Thank you so much, Chris, for the lovely introduction. My name is Iran. I am a Senior Associate of Policy and Programs at the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships, affectionately NEEP. Welcome to New Hampshire Energy Week. Delighted to be here. So we'll start by providing an overview of the brand new England Heat Pump Accelerator. So a brief overview of what we're going to cover today. We'll start with the purpose and structure of the accelerator, what it is, how it's going to work, dive into a couple of its major components, This will be the Market Hub, the Innovation Hub, and the Resource Hub with a slight detour into how does that interact with existing programs and funding sources. We'll give an update on the current status and expected timeline for the program, touch a little bit on how to get involved, and then, as promised, leave some time for open floor discussion with Q&A. I can't see the chat. If I have spotty internet, please somebody come off mute and tell me that there is a problem. Thanks so much. Cool. So starting with section 1, purpose and structure, the New England Heat Pump Accelerator is a program that is formed by a coalition of 5 New England states led by Connecticut, DEEP. The overall target to accelerate heat pump adoption across the region. This is a multi-state market with a lot of similar barriers. So the goal is to overcome systemic barriers to electrification. We're focusing on the residential sector, looking at cold climate heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, ground source heat pumps, and air-to-water heat pumps. We'll talk about the staged and phased launch of this program in the next half hour approximately. Overall, we're aiming to raise heat pump sales to reach 65% of HVAC and water heater sales by 2030 and 90% by 2040. Those are our eventual outcomes. Thanks so much to the EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant for this entire program. So, the vision is broad. We're hoping for heat pumps to be the default choice for heating and cooling across the region. We're aiming for distributors and contractors to really embrace heat pumps and drive customers towards heat pump technologies away from outdated and inefficient options. We want customers to feel supported in their understanding and choice for heat pumps and to be able to easily adopt them in a seamless process. The overall outcome, the dream, is for lowering GHG emissions, energy bills, and energy burdens across the region and specifically in low-income households and communities. To serve that, we have these 3 pillars you see on the screen. And I'll also note, given this is recorded and I think the slides will be available afterwards, I'm not going to go through every bullet and every slide. These are for reference as well. Generally, we'd like to overcome barriers to adoption, specifically for low-income populations, to spur the electrification supply chain, and to use data and information to support our learning, policy, and programmatic evolution. I'll touch on market transformation a little bit later. So why are we focusing on heat pumps? It turns out that space and water heating are the leading sources of greenhouse gas emissions in buildings. Adopting heat pumps can help change that. We are incentivizing heat pumps in our program that use proven and mature technology. We want the stuff that we install to work, of course. We note that this is a residential sector focused program, so we're covering both single and multifamily buildings with air and ground source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. This will have widespread benefits on multiple levels. For communities, we're hoping to see improved air quality and reduced greenhouse gas emissions, increased energy independence, increasingly important, we know, in the current economic climate, and funding for community-centered projects that overcome region-wide hurdles and barriers. For households and building owners, we want each to have greater access to affordable, efficient heating and cooling options, as well as installation and equipment you can rely on. For the private sector installers and suppliers, we're looking at improved and predictable sales and operations, and we're also including workforce development as part of this program. All of this is targeted towards long-term impacts. Market transformation is aiming to overcome specific market barriers in order that we can change what the default choice is for technologies. The program in its entirety will complement existing programs, not trying to supplant anything, including those that engage directly with customers. We know that many programs already have robust marketing and direct engagement with residential customers. We're not trying to create competition or market confusion, but will actually support and maybe even leverage some existing networks, such as contractor networks, for everyone's gain. We're looking at reducing long-term costs ultimately with achieving savings by shifting these default behaviors. So we'll also consider what affects purchasing decisions by investing in innovation to overcome these specific barriers. Just as Chris had a whole range of people to thank, so do I. So we'll start with the coalition states up top. Connecticut DEEP leads the 5, what we're calling the coalition states, so the 5 states of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island in this effort. Second box down there, NEEP and NASCOM. Together, we serve as the regional conveners. And then the box at the bottom, VEIC serves as the lead implementers. I'm lucky to be joined on this call today by members of VEIC and New Hampshire DES, who I invite to join me in as part of the Q&A section later in this presentation. So that's the overview of who's who. Now, an overview of what's what. So we have three major hubs as part of this program. The first one is called the Market Hub. Most of the funds flow through the Market Hub, and mostly this is a midstream channel program. So we're providing midstream incentives to distributors. The implementation team will be engaging with the overall supply chain, and there is also a workforce development aspect to the Market Hub. The Innovation Hub looks for, as you might expect, new ways to overcome barriers for low-income populations. We'll explore this further, but this has sort of two arms. There's the state-level pilots and community-level grants. The implementation team is offering technical support to grantees and ensuring that all of these ideas are meeting program goals. Finally, also very importantly, we're sharing our centralized resources and aiming to work on long-term learnings through the Resource Hub. This is a website that is currently launched. Tools, training resources, customer education, all part of that hub. All of this serves our market transformation overall goal by addressing market barriers, using data, and developing a long-term plan. And I just wanted to put a call-out box in the bottom. Again, our focus is on the residential sector. So taking each of these hubs in turn, the Market Hub has both a midstream incentive component and a workforce development component. The midstream incentives go to so downstream means the customer level. Midstream would be distributors and or manufacturers. This manifests as instant incentives for the end consumer. And just a quick note on where we've been, where we're going. Some quick launch incentives have already been released. The ones that are available are listed on the website. Aiming for expanded eligibility to come in a full launch this summer, June to July, so in the next couple months. So why are we doing this in a midstream way? It turns out that distributors influence a much larger percentage of the equipment sales than it could work by contacting customers directly. So by engaging with market actors higher up in the supply chain, you can accelerate overall adoption. We've seen this model work in a couple other places across this country and others. So we know this is a tested channel. Specifically, and I'll simplify this process, we start at the implementer level that recruits distributors and trains the salespeople. The distributor stocks, promotes, sells, and ships the equipment to the contractor, who then provides the customer with information and the installation, where the customer then receives that instant discount without having to go through a lengthy application process or a lot of other that kind of work that might be part of a downstream rebate. Distributor and implementer have further conversations about reimbursement for this and enrollment into the process. Right now, in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island, there are incentives available for cold climate air source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, as indicated in that table. The ones in italics are coming as part of full launch for ground source heat pumps and air to water heat pumps. I'll note we have a special call out for Maine because Efficiency Maine Trust already runs a well-established and robust midstream program that focuses on heat pump water heaters. So eligibility and rebate amounts differ slightly in Maine. And again, these slides are shared, I think, so the link directs you to what's available in Maine. These are available for single and multifamily homes and totally available for any existing heating fuel type and any electricity provider. So that's the midstream incentive component of the Market Hub. We're also working on advancing workforce development. Specifically, we want to build upon existing programs to supplement and enhance education around heat pumps. So that includes upskilling existing workers and training new entrants into heat pump technologies. We'll also have a focus on bringing small businesses into the market and providing technical assistance for them. With this overall goal, we would love to have some sort of alignment across the coalition states to, build out best practices across the region. Overall, I've begun to mention this, there's three main channels for advancing workforce development: upskilling the current workforce, attracting new talent, and supporting small businesses. So I won't go through each of the bullets, but overall, we'd like to work with existing training programs, existing. So that happens currently through distributors and manufacturers, happens at technical schools and unions and training centers and many other organizations. And we want to build out the whole pipeline. So we've included this aspect of training the trainer. There's also a focus on supporting small businesses, including business boot camps and ongoing technical and business strategy support. Put more visually, this is a multi-pronged system elevating training in, yes, across the region, but we note that Maine, again, with its existing programs, is running much of its own programming. Workforce development is a really important part of the Market Hub because availability and quality of training opportunities can vary across the region. So this program will address the full workforce ecosystem, and so some of our primary stakeholders are shown here. I will leave time for a Q&A for this if you want to ask further questions about how this is being disseminated. Moving on to the next hub, which is the Innovation Hub. This is happening in two major prongs. The state pilots are being offered 1 to 2 for each of the states. Procurement is happening between now and into the remainder of Q2. And the funding amount will depend on the project scope that each coalition state chooses. So each of the states gets to decide what are their priorities, and that could be a building type, it could be a geographic region, anything like that. But these are from the coalition states themselves. Then there is the community level grants. We're aiming for at least one per state in each of the funding round and multiple funding rounds across the duration of the accelerator, aiming for, this is quite a wide range, but 20 to 40 grants total. Procurement is not open yet, but we're targeting the release of the request for proposals for the end of this month. These projects we're aiming for funding levels of between $100,000 to approximately $400,000. Applicants can propose innovative ideas for improving heat pump access in low to moderate income households and communities. So just a quick FAQ, because you know that the community level grants will probably be of interest to many on this call. So the entire Innovation Hub is intended to benefit low to moderate income households and communities. A whole wide range of people can apply for this, starting from community-based organizations to financial organizations, housing, workforce, and many others. Each project will vary pretty significantly, probably. There are some options for, you could do a construction project, you could do outreach. There are so many different types of things that we don't want to predetermine what your team should look like or what your partnerships should look like. It will vary depending on the type of program suggested. And just thinking about types of projects, what's really important is that this is the Innovation Hub. So we're looking at new or significantly improved approaches, tools, partnerships, or delivery models that address barriers to heat pump adoption, and they should be scalable and replicable. Basically, we're hoping to learn something from all the projects that are part of the Innovation Hub. We encourage you to apply for them once the RFP is open, aiming for the end of this month. We're looking for local community-led ideas. There will be technical support provided for applicants, and we're not looking for perfect, already scaled solutions. There will be meaningful funding, as indicated by that, and a meaningful amount of time. So somewhere between $100,000 and $400,000 from 1 to 2 years. So I just put a couple of the example project categories. This could be outreach and financing. It could be research or overcoming installation barriers, workforce development, various make electrification ready ideas. As indicated earlier, their support and technical assistance will be available. Some amount of informational webinars, Q&A sessions. Grantees will have meetings with subject matter experts, things like that. So we encourage you to check out the website and to look out for the applications. A quick note at this stage on the market and innovation hubs as they relate to other sources of funding. So we've heard this concern before from some of the members who are aware of other sources of funding and various limitations on this. So to put a finer point on that, we know that there are limitations on how you can stack and braid homes and HERE, which are federal funds through the Inflation Reduction Act going through the US DOE. So this is EPA, DOE. We note that the two rebate programs, HERE and HOMES, are funding electrification across all of the states. HERE and HOMES prohibit stacking different federal funding sources for the same measure in a project. So popping over to the right, as an example, you could use the IRA rebates to fund, the weatherization in HVAC and use the accelerator to fund a heat pump water heater. Those would be different measures within the buildings project. We note that the CPRG side, it does not have limitations on what you can work with, but you're prevented from the DOE funds by the DOE side of things. But it means that CPRG can work with other types of funding. So the approach we're taking is the accelerator team will support the states figuring out the no, violation of the stacking limitation of homes in here, but will not manage it themselves. This just allows each of the states to choose their own ways of preventing stacking. Could be consumer demographics, or it could be targeting a specific measure. The innovation hub can be more tailored than that. So because each of the states has greater capacity and control over where the funds go, there's more ability for each state to manage the stacking and avoid duplication. So when feasible, it would be great if the project level could braid funding with homes in here, funding separate measures within the same, like home, for example. But it's still important to avoid duplication that are sourced with the midstream incentives. So to work with this, the implementation team is meeting regularly with all the states and with program administrators in each state. And we'll be meeting with the vendors as they get selected and as the homes in here roll out in each state. This will be part of the final design and implementation of homes in here. I know like New Hampshire, it hasn't rolled out yet, but things like that, that is part of the plan for rollout. A quick note on other sources of funds. No problems. So New Hampshire Saves utilities also offer incentives for heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. So the accelerator team meets with program admins across the coalition states regularly, and we know that midstream incentives don't interfere with existing downstream incentive eligibility. There's even potential to leverage each other's work. So we know that we're looking to have qualified contractors install the various equipment that we're incentivizing. So there's potential for working together on workforce development. We'll note that New Hampshire doesn't currently offer state funds for heat pump installations, but there's also no issue with overlap between state funds and CPRG accelerator funds. There's also opportunity for working together here. We know that we're doing outreach through stakeholder engagement through the community action agencies and the state energy offices, and some of the state pilot ideas across the coalition states are even working with other state agencies, including financing and housing departments. So that concludes the market hub and innovation hubs. Next, I'll dive into the third hub is the resource hub. Some of the resources currently available we've bucketed into three categories here. There's program information about midstream incentive details, state pilot and community grant details, and some trainings that are already available. There's some basic material online at this website with more to come soon. We'd also like to eventually provide transparency around how the program is doing and what we're learning from it. Given the program has just kicked off, this is a TBD section. We aim to have data visualizations, maps of installations, case studies, and lessons learned. That's all planned for when we have information to report there. And finally, as part of workforce development, we have resources for trade professionals, and then overall, we have resources for community organizations. That could be handouts for consumer education, flyers for contractor materials, sales and marketing things. Again, we have some information up with more to come here. Putting a finer point on what's available now, we have these four main categories of incentives, community grants and state pilots, data insights to come, and heat pump training and education divided into the resource library and the learning center. We also have two other sections on news and updates on regional engagement and outreach groups, heat pump education opportunities, again, more to come, and a way for everyone to stay connected. There is a sign-up form where you can sign up for a monthly newsletter where you can stay apprised of the opportunities coming out through the accelerator. I'll zoom in on the heat pump training and education for a second here. So within the resource library, we have these major sections of handouts to help your customers, resources for growing businesses, and some guides and resources from the Learning Center. The Learning Center is still in the process of developing more training content with full trainings expected to launch at the end of Q2. Right now, there are 4 basic modules available already just to get started with. So Heat Pump 101 through 104. Okay, with that, I'll provide a quick status update of where we are and where we're expecting to head in the next, few years. So where we are right now, the Market Hub has launched. The quick launch has happened as of February of this year. Incentives are available for air source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, with a lot of distributors already enrolled and more to come. Full launch expected in the next couple months with increased eligibility for various either types of buildings and equipment types. In the Innovation Hub, again, those two prongs of state and community levels, the Massachusetts request for proposal is already open for bidders. So if you work across state lines in Massachusetts, go ahead and check that out. Other states, we're expecting to release their requests for proposals soon. From the community level side, we've just closed out our request for information last Friday, with the target date for release of the request for proposals at the end of this month. And finally, on the Resource Hub, the website is live. Go check out the resources we already have with some explainers and some news and updates. As mentioned, we have some basic materials and we're continuing to update the training resources, and the data dashboard will be updated when there is a body of data to report on. As I've mentioned before, this is recorded and the slides will be made public, I think, so I won't walk you through each of these bullets. But for where we are now in Q2 2026, looking forward, we're continuing with the distributor enrollment, which has begun and is continuing to work on. The trainings we're working on as well. There's, as part of the Innovation Hub, state pilot and community grants, RFIs, RFPs, procurements continuing from Q2 through the end of this year and on through the end of the program. The midstream program launch, the full launch is expected for summer, and continued implementation will happen through the end of the program. And we expect for the website soon an events and trainings calendar, so everyone can be aware of when the next events are. As mentioned, within Q3 and moving on forward, we're expanding the trainings and content, including data visualizations, and continuing to implement the midstream programs. Eventually, we will be reporting out lessons learned, reports and case studies, perhaps narratives on success stories, things like that. So looking forward to continued implementation. Now, how does everyone on the call here get involved at this stage? So we know that this is a regional program, which will require a regional engagement strategy. This has a bunch of reasons behind it. We want regional alignment across our existing programs and the partners we work with. We'd love to center the community and industry voices in the design and implementation of the program, ensure that we have channels for feedback, ensure that we have transparency provided, and ultimately to scale the reach and impact of this program moving forward. This is already happening through a couple channels. Firstly, all of the coalition states meet in what's called the Advisory Council, which coordinates between the states to advise on program design and make sort of these high-level decisions. At hub-specific levels, there is tactical engagement within each of the program hubs, meaning the Market Hub, Innovation Hub, and Resource Hub, with maybe targeted topics such as workforce development. There is state-specific outreach that is either ongoing and or planned that fits the unique characteristics of each state. Again, this is a region-wide program, but each state does have its own characteristics, whether that's geographic or building stock or demographic or other. Finally, though, because of those regional barriers, we are working on regional stakeholder engagement, looking at feedback and alignment, hearing on-the-ground stories, making sure that we are sharing our knowledge and our progress, and making strategies looking forward that extend to the end of the accelerator and maybe even beyond. With that, here are some current opportunities for everyone to get involved. So distributors can register for participation by emailing. I believe when the slides are sent out, that link is clickable. But there's a way to get involved in the midstream program as a distributor. Contractors are welcome to check out the training resources currently on the website and to look at our learning center. For state pilots, we'll note that the bid for the RFP in Massachusetts is due May 18th, and other RFPs are coming soon. Again, stay tuned for that. The website will have the latest information. For community level grants, the funding opportunity will be available through the RFP, which is again being targeted to be released at the end of this month. And then to stay aware of all of these wonderful opportunities, please do sign up for our newsletter, which if you get to our website. It's all the way at the bottom. There's a sort of sign up um, form there, and we look forward to staying in touch with everyone. So, with that, I'd like to open the floor to questions. We're now about halfway through this meeting, so I'd love to save the rest of the time for any of your questions. I have with me on the line, I'm grateful to have our partners at VEIC and NHDES. So, any questions you have for all of our organizations, we're happy to try and help answer. I turn it to Chris to tell me what's in the chat and or Q&A.
So the chat should be working now. I appreciate that it seemed to have not been open from the start. Pooja has been working diligently to answer the questions in the question and answer box. Is there a delay? Oh, wait.
No, I can hear you.
There's an echo on my end where I can hear myself coming in. I wonder if there's a second account open somewhere. I'll work on that. So a question I have based on the work that our team at Clean Energy New Hampshire has done to answer the original RFI that DES put out, and then working through the community level one. I'm wondering if you can explain how the the Innovation Hub, the Community Grant, and the Midstream might work together.
This is a good
Like,
question.
just because I think there's going to be individuals here that might be thinking about how they position themselves to take advantage of or participate or support each of the three, but it's not quite clear on how they might be stacked or braided together, or are they independent and complementary?
Great. I'm going to take a first pass on this and then I will pass it towards VEIC if that's okay with Pooja.
Yes.
Um, so the midstream incentives are available to all. If this sort of depends on who's asking the question. If you're a distributor, please enroll. You should be reaching out to the implementer team to enroll and make sure that you can participate to be able to distribute to stock and get incentives and the funding for participating in the program. If you're a contractor, the work sort of happens at the maybe training level. So there's this workforce development aspect that happens through the market hub. And then end customers, this is a sort of transparent process to the end customer. You just receive the instant incentive once your distributor is participating and your contractor knows about it. But the end consumer can also be working with community-based organizations and or other types of organizations to be applying for the Innovation Hub grants. So we hope for that application process to be easy and streamlined. So most anybody should be able to apply for that. For any other color, I'll turn it to VEIC.
Thanks, Iran. Hi, everyone. My name is Pooja Vora. I'll just add to what Iran said, which is that even though the requirements of each of the hubs are different, ultimately it benefits the end users in different ways, right? So in the midstream portion that Iran mentioned, even though the direct audience is distributors, and then through them it goes to the contractors and the end users, the ultimate gain is for the end users, right? And then there's the workforce development training, which really focuses on the contractors as the primary audience, but it's really benefiting them installing the equipment correctly so that the homeowners and end users can see the benefit in reduction in costs, right? And proper comfort for their homes through good heat pump installation. For the Innovation Hub, again, as Iran already pointed out, the direct recipient of the grants are either nonprofits or community-based organizations or anyone who's representing a solution for the community, right? And those Innovation Hub grants could be structured in a way, whether they're rebates or cost of workforce development, research projects, anything that benefits the communities. Now, a lot of the Innovation Hub projects can tap into the midstream funds that are going through the Market Hub, right? So there's this relationship right there. If an Innovation Hub project is focused on workforce development within their community, they can tap into the workforce development resources that are being provided through the midstream program. So the way this whole program is designed is that there will be lots of interactions between hubs and interactions for all of you, whether you are a contractor or distributor or someone representing a community-based organization or community, you can tap into several of these components of the programs. And then the resource hub is really just a central repository of information gathering, right? That benefits all the key actors that Iran mentioned. So I think we've said enough in terms of explaining, but if you have further questions, we'd be happy to answer further. Brendan, do you have anything more you would like to add?
Thanks, Pooja. This is Brendan Wyman from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I think that those were great answers. Just kind of keeping in mind there's a regional aspect, obviously, to the accelerator program where that's through the midstream incentives, which fits for the four of the 5 states that are part of the coalition. And then the Innovation Hub has opportunities for further refinement for opportunities for specific populations in particular, such as the low to moderate income. So if you're a homeowner in New Hampshire, you probably want to first think about how you could be eligible for the midstream incentives, because that's a larger audience. But then once we have our Innovation Hub funding or our programs established, the state pilot and the community-based grants, then you can see if you fit and you qualify into those categories for those programs as well. So it's kind of seeing which you qualify for first, I think is one of the first steps.
All right, great. Thank you. Our first question, and I personally may have a follow-up to this, but Matt Davis with UNH and also had done some of the REAP-TAG programs work or technical assistance. It has a question on programmatic requirements and ensuring that the equipment is being properly sized or right-sized, and a question about whether there would be a programmatic requirement to use manual J, and if not, will there be other post-installation verification of system performance to make sure that we're meeting program goals?
I'm going to answer one part of that and then turn the rest over to Pooja, if I may. The one part I'm going to answer is there is QA/QC expected as part of this. One of the team members in the implementation team is Ridgeline, and they have done a lot of QA/QC in the past. Pooja, if I can turn to you to ask the question about sort of requirements on manual J and sizing, other sort of questions.
Right. So the way this program was designed was we wanted to not create a whole new process for yet another program that everyone has to follow. And so our principle behind this program is to be as consistent as possible with whatever the existing programs are through the ratepayer funded programs like New Hampshire Saves or any other state-specific programs that are requiring any eligibility or any specific installation requirements. So we want to keep this program easy to use with less paperwork as much as possible. And so we specifically don't have any requirements. As far as a distributor, is participating in our program, any contractor can reach out to them and if they meet the requirements of the program, the midstream program, and you will see on our website starting in June, there's a whole layout of what requirements for the equipment has to be in order to participate. If the equipment requirement is met, a contractor can go and purchase that equipment from the distributors and install it in a particular home. When it comes to QA/QC, we do have a component on a QA/QC, but it is not a requirement for getting any kind of incentives because that is more on the programmatic side of things to make sure that the installations are happening. Having said that, because we have a very strong workforce development component of the program, we're working on the back end with the contractors to ensure that they themselves are installing the equipment and following any of the manual J requirements for installations. So that's how we're treating this program.
All right, great. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Yaron. A question from Peter Glenshaw is, how much money is being allocated to each of the program elements? And are there success metrics to go along with that?
Great questions, both. The first one I'll answer by saying that the total program is $450 million. 270 of that is going to the midstream incentives or sorry, to the market hub, which includes the midstream incentives with some portion to the workforce development. I noted that the state pilots are the range we've set is somewhere between 9 and 15 million per state pilot, with 1 to 2 per state. And the community level grants are 100 to $400,000 approximate range, depending on the project. So as makes sense for each of those. A lot of the balance will go to, and then there's some other portion allocated to answer the second part of the question. A third-party evaluator is currently being contracted with and procured for to help work out to examine the success of the program. So we're coming up with KPIs around, or sorry, key performance indicators around things like people reached, installations, tracking engagement outcomes, tracking customer experiences, training experiences, and then overall market effects over the long term. We're also hoping to do a cost study looking at how the costs of equipment change or cost of installation and equipment change over time. Any other color to add on that? Yeah, please.
I can just summarize specifically for New Hampshire, if that makes sense. Maybe
Yeah.
carving that out would give you a scale, right? So as Iran mentioned, those are more on the programmatic overall incentives and grant amounts. This is a 4-year program. So for specifically New Hampshire, the carve out for the midstream incentives, and I'm looking at our sheet to make sure I'm reading the right numbers, is 40 million. So out of the 270 million that Iran mentioned, 40 million is carved out for the midstream incentives, right? That goes directly to benefit the end users. Then there is a 14.5 million set aside for a state pilot that DES, New Hampshire DES, is working towards for the state. And then there are the community grants, up to 3 grants that New Hampshire is allocated, which can be up to $400,000 per community grant. So that kind of gives you a scale for what it means for New Hampshire.
So if I heard correctly, Pooja, that puts us at, for New Hampshire, around $30 million in total spending that could occur here in this state to incentivize heat pumps.
I would say more because 40 million is just carved out for incentives for midstream.
Okay. I thought I had heard 14, and then 3 times 400,000.
Oh no, 40 million, 40 million
Oh,
for,
40 million. Okay,
yes.
that's
It's
significantly
out
more.
of,
My math.
Sorry, my
it's out of
I'm really glad that I asked
270.
that.
Clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to feel cheated, but
Yes, it's
okay.
a significant amount carved out for 4 years for the midstream incentives. That is the big chunk of the grant. And then for the individual states to think about innovative solutions and barriers that they're facing, which are very unique to the states, we have this carve out for state pilot and then the community grant. So it's kind of taking it from broader market, 40 million, to specific state pilot that benefits the entire state, to very specific communities, which, are trying to solve issues within the community level. So kind of a gradient level.
All right. So
And I see
this
Brendan
this.
off mute too, if you wanted to add anything to
Oh,
that.
sorry, Brandon.
Oh, I just off-muted myself because Pooja and Chris worked out the right numbers there. It sounds like that was reported correctly.
Yeah, I think we had been optimistically doing a per capita basis that we would assume we got 40 million, and so that 45. So something you just introduced that goes, again, putting my Clean Energy New Hampshire ECR team hat on, our energy circuit riders. You mentioned something about collecting data, and it's a 4-year program. And so just to make sure that people are understanding like what to expect, is the data going to be fed into VEIC, NEEP, and the other program partners, and possibly modify programs or conditions as we go to optimize based on how the program is doing to deliver the highest and best? So, like, might there be midstream adjustments so that people aren't like, all right, we've got our 45 million for 4 years, go. There's going to be more innovation and dynamicity. That's not a word.
Short answer, sort of. We have hired a third party, or we're in the process of procuring a third party evaluator for whom it is very important to do sort of real-time feedback, short turnaround. We're looking at a short time frame, so we don't want to wait until the entire program is over and be like, how did we do, right? We want to do real time, how it's going, any adjustments that need to be made. That said, it is very important that we maintain market consistency and expectations. So we don't expect like drastic changes. We don't want to stop nature of things. We want people to trust that the funding is there, it's going to flow, and they know what it is. So there may be some adjustments in maybe delivery, there may be some adjustments in, how it works out, but we don't want there to be drastic changes that will create uncertainty.
Super helpful. Last follow-up question. Will there be annual limits for the midstream spend so that it theoretically could run out mid-year, or it runs out when you've spent the total amount?
Oh, great question. Um, I see push button.
Oh, can you repeat that question again, Chris?
Yeah, sorry. It sounds like we're all breaking up. My question, so for the New Hampshire Saves program in the past, they have had like annual allocations for their 3-year program. And when they spend that annual allocation, they have to stop. And so that has been something we've been working to adjust and accommodate to make sure that people aren't rushing projects or to get them before the money runs out, or they're not waiting. So I'm wondering, you've got 4 years and the money that we've talked about, is it allocated on a kind of a rolling basis, or is it allocated all at once? So one state could potentially do all of their work in the midstream program in a year and a half. Or is it intended to be stretched out so that in Q4 of the 4th year, there's still some money left?
Yeah. So wearing that programmatic hat and the cycle that New Hampshire Saves and all of you are familiar with, um, we do not have annual budgets. This is a 4-year program. We have a carve out for New Hampshire. Having said that, our midstream program administrator, Energy Solutions, who's our partner, they're going to be monitoring incentives in the market, getting feedback from the distributors, maybe adding more products as they get available, adjusting incentives according to what the market needs are, and discussing with our partners at New Hampshire Saves and DES. And yes, monitoring the market for sure, adding more products as needed, in a way that it serves the program for its 4-year period. So no specific end of year goals. We're looking at it holistically, but at the same time managing the market so that we can provide incentives at a way that justifies the 4-year carve out that we have. I hope that answered your question, Chris.
Yes.
I think the real worry in New Hampshire is sort of a start-stop nature of programs, and we're really aiming to avoid that.
Yeah. Great. And I have a question regarding contractors. I think it's a good one. It's recognizing that not only are we a regional energy market, but we are a regional workforce market. And Vermont, which did not elect, they pursued their own independent CPIRG program rather than join the regional CPIRG program, are not part of the New England Heat Pump Accelerator program. However, they have a workforce. Can that workforce cross into Massachusetts or New Hampshire, or even go a little bit further into Connecticut and Maine if the money is being spent in those states? So can installers from other states perform work in our states? So I guess, yeah.
So if I understand your question correctly, Chris, and then stop me if it's kind of diverting somewhere else. Um, the way this program was designed, keeping 5 states in mind, was we understand that the contractors and distributors don't have borders and state lines, right? They work across states. We want to make it easy for them to be able to work across states. If you have a business in Vermont, but you're serving the needs of your homeowners and you have your client and customer base that is in these 5 participating states, you can purchase equipment from the midstream program if you are located in Vermont or you are a Vermont distributor, but you're serving the homeowners and contractors who are going to be ultimately installing at one of these 5 states, you can absolutely participate because there are certain asks, right? When you are purchasing equipment at point of sale, you will be asked a few questions, which is what is the address of the particular home that you're installing and where is it located and what kind of, you know, base fuel they have existing and so on, right? There's some key questions we're going to ask, and that will help our distributors identify, yes, they do qualify for a program and these are the incentives. So that way, as far as you're serving any customer in these 5 states, you can participate.
I think there's also other types of participation. So I'll point out our online training resources. There are many that will just be open to use.
Right.
So the ones that apply to cold climate, we certainly hope that they will use those resources.
Right. I mean, the website is out there. Whatever information and resources we have online is to benefit the greater
Everyone.
good. Yeah. And even some of the case studies and the learnings that we extract from our Innovation Hub pilots, we would love for everyone to take a look at it, right? To see what we learned through our pilots, what were the barriers, what were we able to solve for the low to moderate income communities. These are the costs. I mean, there's going to be a lot of transparency in terms of sales information as well. And people can really benefit from learning about these. And if you're going to start something else in your state, in another state that's not participating, we would love for them to see those examples and see how they can benefit from that. So that is the intent. Market transformation, long term.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for working through my question. You actually expanded by noting that the distributors based in Vermont, as well as the installers based in Vermont, can be participants in this.
One thing I did want to point out, Chris, that they have to, they have to enroll themselves. Those distributors have to enroll themselves in the Energy Solutions Midstream program in order to participate. So that's the requirement for the distributors, not for the contractors.
Great, thank you. So our next question, for community-based grants, and this is going to resonate with a lot of people, regardless whether it's a community-based grant or others, just because of what they're asking about. But are the elements that people struggled with the IIJA and the IRA, would a nonprofit awardee need to comply with BABA, wage requirements, and other federal requirements that have tripped up projects? Well-intentioned policy, but it has made it difficult. So would installers, homeowners, and suppliers have to show compliance with all of these federal requirements?
Excellent question, and one we're definitely wrestling with within our team. So we've done a big, deep dive and had lots of back and forth with EPA about, are there certain categories of things that are exempt? Are there certain types of projects where it's sort of less helpful? So basically the answer I think is sort of stay tuned. There's technical assistance available on this. And we are working on certain of more like grantee sort of facing version of what applies, what doesn't. Are there cross cutters that, something like Historical Preservation Act, like how does that come in and apply? And the answer will be a little bit different depending on each project, each technology, sometimes each state. So something to stay tuned for, and that there is going to be technical support available for. Definitely aware of these issues. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
Probably leave like one more question and turn it back to you, Chris.
I'm not seeing any new questions, but I do
Awesome.
also have my own, I guess, so in certain states, they have a bit of a head start. Maine has made a big heat pump push compared to other states, so they might spend money faster. There's other states that might spend money more slowly. Is there a risk to New Hampshire in some way the program's designed where if we don't spend certain amounts by certain times, we lose that money? I'm thinking specifically of the VW trust where you have 10 years to spend all the money, but 80% needs to be spent within a certain window, or you relinquish some of those funds to the rest of the states that participated in that trust. So here are states somewhat in competition with one another to make sure they reach certain spending levels in order to be able to continue to have access to the rest of the funds. Or is the program designed to just make sure as much market transformation, as much spending is done within that 4-year window?
I think the latter. We're not aiming to have the states compete with one another on their rates of spending. As you note, they're all in different states of spending and can spend it on different things. But that's not in our plans to route from Peter give to Paul.
All right, great. That's good news. Are there any other last questions?
In case there are, I'm going to turn to the next slide and say, if you have further questions, please ask us. We have a few ways to contact us at the below. So we would love for your questions to go to the full team. So that contact link at the New England Heat Pump Accelerator.org we'll send you to the full team. There is, I think, a like 3 to 5 business day promise that someone will get back to you about your question within that time. You can also reach out directly to a couple of these emails. They'll also go to this team. But the first one just allows us to triage, if you will, and send it the right way. So please keep us posted with your questions. Thank you so much for attending this meeting. We hope we helped answer some of your questions. And we can take another one if you want, or I can turn it back to Chris to close.
So as it transfers back to me, I think what I just heard is don't contact Brendan. What I mean by that is that in New Hampshire, we will go to the local individual. But for this program, to contact Brendan, but also to reach the rest of the group, it's best to use this contact information rather than everyone do what they would do is just contact Brendan. I'm trying to
I don't
protect
personally
Brendan.
want Brendan. Yeah, I don't personally want Brendan inundated with emails. That maybe that
Exactly.
is a helpful
I'm
option,
not trying to
but I
block
think he
Brendan
will
out.
direct them to us. Yeah. Yeah. Whoever you send to, it will go to the right place eventually. We're not trying to stop you. Any form of contact will work. We don't want Brendan himself getting 1,000 emails every day.
Yes, that is my point. Like, it is not to undermine or just credit Brendan's work at all. It's just to make sure that you have a much larger team that can support Brendan and get him the questions that's relevant to DES. So this is also for me and my team. Info at NH or the New England Heat Pump Accelerator.org is our first stop.
Or that contact us page. Truly, that also feeds into that email. So
Okay, fantastic.
cool. Thanks much. Back to you, Chris, to close.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate everyone tuning in and continuing to participate. Throughout this week, we have events for the remainder of the week for 2026 New Hampshire Energy Week. You probably have received many updates, but we have, I think, more than 50 events around the state, some in person, some that continue to be like this that will be recorded, and we're going to make every effort to make sure that what is done virtually is made available to everybody so that you can go to the in-person things, but still go back and at your own time review and reflect on the other events. If you have any questions, please reach out. I am embarrassed that I don't have the New England the Energy Week webpage up for me to share. All right, rather than pause, but I want to thank again NEEP, VEIC, and New Hampshire DES for putting this together, working on this while they are working with hundreds of other partners and all the other states. Really feel grateful for the work they've put into this and optimistic about the timing of this program arriving with such a highly skilled, experienced expert team to help New Hampshire make the best use of this money. So thank you all. May the 4th be with you.